Humans accidentally enter a galactic empire, yet they stand unimpressed. The small human exploration ship glided silently through the blackness of space. Captain Lucas Parker sat in the pilot chair, his hands resting lightly on the controls. The stars stretched out ahead, cold and distant, and the ship hummed softly under the strain of its engines. Beside him, engineer Ethan Cole checked the diagnostic panels, his brow furrowed. "Engines are stable," Ethan said. "We're ready for the jump, Lucas." Lucas nodded. "Good. Let's see if the new nav system works. I don't want any surprises this time." Scientist Lisa Brown looked up from her data pad, her fingers tapping nervously. "You've said that for every test jump, Lucas. What could go wrong?" "Everything," Lucas replied with a small smile. "But that's why we test." Diplomat Claire Young, seated across from them, glanced out the viewport. "I just hope we don't bump into anyone this time. Interstellar maps aren't perfect." The ship's interior was simple. There were no luxurious panels, no glowing lights beyond what was needed. Everything was functional, precise, and easy to use. Humans preferred this over flashy designs. It made life easier on long journeys. Lucas set the ship on course for the next star system. He activated the jump sequence. The stars outside stretched and blurred into lines of light. A familiar sense of speed and displacement filled the cabin. It was routine. And then everything went wrong. The stars did not settle as expected. The light lines twisted in strange ways. The ship shuddered. Alarms began to beep softly. Ethan's head snapped up. "That's not right," he said. "What happened?" Claire asked, gripping the edge of her seat. Lucas frowned. I think we overshot, or maybe the nav system glitched." Lisa leaned forward. "There's something ahead. Not a star, some kind of large structure." Through the viewport, the crew could see it. Enormous ships, hundreds of them, larger and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. They glimmered with metal panels that reflected the distant stars. Glowing trails of energy connected some of them. It looked like a city moving through space. Lucas's eyes widened. "That's a lot of ships." "It's not just a lot," Ethan said quietly. "It's an entire fleet, maybe an entire empire." Claire swallowed. "Are they noticing us?" As if in answer, a beam of light scanned the human ship. The hum of energy passed through their hull. The humans remained calm, but the Empire's sensors had already marked them as an anomaly. A small, fragile ship floating among giants. "Okay," Lucas said slowly. "Step 1, don't panic. Step 2, figure out where we are. Step 3, wait. Step 3 might be asking them politely for directions." Lisa shook her head, half amused. "I can't believe this. An entire empire, and they'll probably expect us to bow or surrender." "We won't," Lucas said firmly. "We're humans, we don't do that. We solve problems." The human ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language the humans didn't understand. The tones were sharp, commanding, and almost musical. Ethan quickly switched to universal translation. It was rough but understandable. "Unidentified ship," the voice said. "State your purpose immediately." Lucas leaned forward. Hello, we are human explorers. We made a navigation mistake. We do not intend to intrude. We just need to, get directions." There was silence for a moment. Then the voice returned, louder, sterner. "Approach for inspection. Do not attempt escape." "Inspection," Claire muttered. "Great, that sounds fun." "Fun is exactly the word I'd use," Lisa said, biting her lip. Lucas took a deep breath. "Okay, humans, stay calm, stay polite. We'll see what they want." He adjusted the controls. The human ship began a slow approach toward the nearest Imperial vessel. Inside that vessel, High Commander Zalith observed the humans through energy screens. He had expected fear. He had expected trembling. He had expected them to bow, to beg, to surrender. Instead, he saw 4 humans moving with calm efficiency. One sat at the helm, focused but relaxed. Another typed at panels, checking systems. A third studied instruments quietly. The fourth just watched the stars. Zalith frowned. Why are they not afraid? Back on the human ship, Ethan tapped the controls, scanning the surrounding Empire ships. They have a lot of firepower, but their shields are standard. Engines are advanced, but nothing unusual. Looks like they overestimate themselves. Overestimate themselves? Lucas asked. Yeah, Ethan said. They're big, flashy, but not intimidating, at least not if you stay calm. Claire nodded slowly. I can handle the conversation. We'll be polite. We'll answer questions, but we will not pretend to fear them. The Imperial inspection ship opened a docking bay. A platform extended. Humans had never met such a display before. Robots and uniformed beings stood ready, scanning every movement. Lisa whispered, "They're ready for war if we do anything wrong." Lucas said calmly, "Then we do everything right, simple and polite. We'll show them humans are humans." The human ship docked carefully. The airlock opened and the first Imperial officers stepped inside. They were tall, with armored uniforms and sharp features. Their eyes glowed faintly with implants. They spoke in precise, commanding tones. "Identify yourselves," one demanded. Lucas stepped forward, hands visible. "I am Captain Lucas Parker. This is Engineer Ethan Cole, Scientist Lisa Brown, and Diplomat Claire Young. We are human explorers. We came here by accident. We do not intend offense." The Imperial officers looked confused. They expected fear, trembling, begging. Instead, they saw calm, polite, and confident. "Your technology," one officer said, pointing at the ship. "It is primitive," Ethan shrugged. "It's functional, we get the job done. Sometimes simple works better than complex." The officer narrowed their eyes. "You do not understand our power." Lucas smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but we also don't need to. We just need to survive, learn, and leave. That's what humans do." The room went quiet. The humans were not impressed by the Empire. They did not bow. They did not tremble. They treated the encounter as routine, a small misstep on a journey. Zalith, observing from afar, could not understand. Humans should fear him. They should beg for mercy. Instead, they calmly explained their mistake and continued talking as equals. "This is unusual," the officer whispered. Lucas led his team through the inspection, answering questions, showing the ship's interior, and explaining the accident politely. Lisa explained scientific instruments. Ethan explained engineering processes. Claire explained why humans travel, why they explore, why they respect but do not fear. The Empire's officers were confused. They had faced hundreds of races before. Most were small, weak, and compliant. These humans were small, yes, but not weak. They were not compliant. They were calm, polite, and confident. As the inspection ended, Lucas turned to the Imperial officer. "Thank you for your time. We will return to our journey shortly." The officer hesitated, then nodded. "We will observe. Do not attempt escape." "Of course," Lucas said politely. "We wouldn't dream of it." Once the humans returned to their ship, Ethan let out a long breath. "I thought my heart would stop." Lisa laughed softly. "They thought we would be scared. We were," Claire smiled. "Humans have a funny way of doing things. We survive by keeping calm, even in impossible situations." Lucas looked out at the fleet. "They're big, they're powerful, they're impressive, but so far they don't scare us, and that's enough for now." The human ship detached from the dock and floated back into space. The stars were calm, cold, and endless again. The human crew settled in, discussing repairs and the jump home, while the massive Empire watched silently, unsure what to do next. They had never met a race that ignored fear. They had never met humans. And that was the start of something that would change the way the Empire thought about power. After the human ship returned to open space, the massive Imperial fleet held position around them. Captain Lucas Parker leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Well," he said, "that went better than I expected." Engineer Ethan Cole shook his head, still a little nervous. "Better? Lucas, they have fleets bigger than some of our star systems. They could destroy us in a second." Lucas smiled. "Yes, but they didn't." They just wanted to talk, and we stayed calm. That's the point. Scientist Lisa Brown tapped at her data pad. I still can't believe how much technology they have. Their engines, their shields, even the energy readings from their sensors. It's all huge. And yet they underestimated us completely. Diplomat Claire Young nodded. Humans do that a lot. We don't worry about appearances. We focus on facts. The Empire focuses on appearances. That's the difference. The humans did not notice it yet, but the Empire was in chaos. High Commander Zalith paced inside the command room of his flagship. He had never encountered a race that ignored fear or authority. How can they not fear us? A junior officer asked nervously. Zalith stopped pacing and stared at the holographic projection of the human ship. I do not know, they are small, primitive, and yet there is something in their calm, something that challenges everything we know. Should we attack? Another officer asked. Zalith shook his head. No, not yet. We observe, learn, understand. We cannot underestimate them. Back on the human ship, Lucas and his crew were preparing for what they assumed would be a polite, short visit from more Imperial officials. They had no idea how seriously the Empire was taking them. A communication panel lit up. The voice of another Imperial official filled the cabin. It was formal and precise, with a tone meant to impress and intimidate. Humans, the voice said, we request your presence in the central hall of the Fleet Command. Comply immediately. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Central Hall, that sounds fancy, Claire replied calmly. They want to assert authority, we'll go, politely. They docked at the Imperial command ship again. The airlock opened, and this time more officers stepped inside. They were taller, more armored, and more rigid than the first group. Their eyes glowed faintly with cybernetic implants. Identify yourselves again, one demanded. Lucas smiled slightly. I am Captain Lucas Parker of the human ship Horizon. This is Engineer Ethan Cole, Scientist Lisa Brown, and Diplomat Claire Young. We are explorers. Our presence here is accidental. We wish no harm. The officers looked confused. They expected fear, begging respect. Instead, they saw humans who were calm, polite, and confident. Your technology, one officer said, it is inferior to Imperial standards. You should not be here, Ethan shrugged. It works, that's enough for us. The officer narrowed his eyes. You do not understand our power. Lucas shook his head slowly. Maybe not. But we understand what we need to do. Survive, learn, and leave safely. That's enough. Lisa stepped forward. Your systems are impressive, but simple humans' designs often work better in long journeys. Small, reliable, redundant. The Imperial officers whispered to each other. The calm, confident humans were unlike anything they had met before. One officer finally asked, Why are you not afraid? Lucas smiled. Fear is not useful for us. We respect power. We respect knowledge. We respond to threats with skill and care, not panic. Claire added, Humans do not act from fear. We act from understanding. That is why we survive in dangerous places. The officers seemed confused. It was not fear that scared them. It was respect. Humans did not show the expected fear. They were polite, yes, but polite confidence unsettled the Empire more than trembling ever could. The group was led into the central hall. It was enormous, filled with energy beams, moving platforms, and screens showing star maps. Humans had never seen anything like it. Yet they were not impressed. Lisa whispered to Ethan, Look at this, huge, flashy, powerful, and yet it feels inefficient. Ethan nodded. All that technology, but so rigid. Small human systems could navigate this better than their machines. In the hall, humans met High Commander Zalith for the first time. He was tall, armored, and radiated authority. He had expected fear and submission. Instead, he found calm, polite humans who seemed almost bored. Humans, Zalith said, his voice commanding. You are in my space. You must obey my orders. Do you understand? Lucas responded calmly. We understand you are in charge of this area. We respect your authority, but we cannot obey orders that limit our freedom. We are explorers. We do not seek conquest. Zalith's eyes narrowed. You are insolent. You do not understand the Empire. Lucas shrugged lightly. Maybe not, but we understand ourselves. That is enough for now. Claire stepped forward. We will cooperate as much as we can. We will answer your questions. We will not threaten you. But we will not bow or pretend to fear. That is not human nature. Zalith was disturbed. Humans were polite, cooperative, yet unafraid. They treated him as an equal, though he commanded a vast empire. He could not understand it. Your species, he said quietly, does not behave like any other. Humans often do not, Lisa added. We survive differently. We are not impressed by size or strength alone. We are impressed by skill, care, and intelligence. The officers whispered again. They had never heard such words. Humility and confidence together were strange. In their experience, confidence without fear was a threat. The humans continued to walk through the central hall. Ethan observed machinery, noting how complicated and fragile it seemed. They have power, he said softly, but they rely too much on large systems. Humans would do this differently. Lisa nodded. Simple, small, precise. That's what works in the long term. Zalith tried again to assert control. You will answer all my questions honestly. You will not hide anything. You will respect the Empire. Lucas leaned forward. We will answer questions politely. We will share what is needed to prevent misunderstanding, but we will not pretend to fear you. Humans are not obedient out of fear. We cooperate out of choice. The commander paused. Cooperate out of choice? Yes, Claire said. Humans respect strength, knowledge, and skill. We respond to it with effort and care, but we do not worship it blindly. That is our nature. Zalith's face darkened. Humans were calm, polite, intelligent, and yet unafraid. They did not bow. They did not beg. They treated the Empire as one force among many in the universe, not as a god to obey. Your species is confusing, Zalith admitted, his voice low. Lucas smiled slightly. Humans are often confusing to some, but we are predictable if you understand us. We value life, learning, and freedom. That is enough for survival. The hall remained tense. Humans had no weapons drawn. They had no threat gestures. Yet the Empire felt unsettled. Polite calm could be more dangerous than fear. Humans were calm but capable, and they had no intention of bowing. After long discussion, the humans were allowed to return to their ship. They did so quietly, without arrogance, without fear. Once inside, Ethan let out a breath. That was intense, Lisa laughed softly. Intense, yes, but I think we did well. We did not give them reason to attack. We just existed calmly, Claire smiled. Humans have a strange way of being. We survive by keeping calm, by understanding, by acting with care. The Empire is large and powerful, but they do not understand that yet. Lucas looked out the viewport. We may have made a mistake jumping here, but we also made a statement. Humans do not fear power. Humans do not bow to intimidation. And for now, that is enough. Outside, the massive Imperial fleet remained in orbit observing. Commanders whispered, scholars argued, and generals debated. How could a small human ship be so calm, so polite, yet so unafraid? The humans returned to their routine checking systems, repairing minor issues from the jump, and preparing for the next leg of their journey. The Empire, however, would not forget them. Humans had arrived by accident. Yet their calm, confident nature had already started to unsettle the galaxy's greatest power. And that was only the beginning. The human ship floated in the vast space near the Galactic Empire's fleet. Captain Lucas Parker leaned back in his chair, scanning the stars. Everything seemed quiet, almost too quiet. The Empire watched them constantly, but the humans remained calm. I don't like it when they watch us, Ethan said, his fingers tapping the control panel nervously. It's like a million eyes on us. Lucas shrugged. Let them watch. We're not hiding. Humans are always calm under observation. It's part of how we survive. Scientist Lisa Brown examined a small screen showing the Empire's fleet statistics. They have hundreds of ships, large, powerful, advanced, but all that tech, it's complicated. Their systems are strong, yes, but fragile in small ways. Diplomat Claire Young leaned back. They underestimate us. That's the key. Humans survive because we don't worry about size or numbers. We use intelligence, care, and quick thinking. We stay calm when others panic. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. A minor Imperial patrol ship nearby shuddered violently. Red lights flashed on its hull. Ethan jumped up, scanning the data. Reactor failure, they're losing power. We should help, Lisa asked uncertainly. Lucas nodded. Yes, quietly, calmly. Humans fix problems. Claire raised her eyebrows. You want to intervene in their Empire's ship? That's bold. Lucas smiled slightly. Humans are bold when it's the right thing. We don't start wars, but we solve problems, always. Ethan quickly prepared repair drones. Lisa helped monitor power levels, while Claire coordinated communication. Lucas maneuvered the human ship closer to the failing patrol vessel. The Imperial fleet noticed the humans approaching. Alarms rang on several ships. Officers whispered to each other, clearly surprised. A small, unarmed human ship was moving to assist a large Imperial vessel. It made no sense to them. They think they can fix it, one officer said in disbelief. Humans are reckless, another replied, or foolish. Either way, this is unusual. Inside the human ship, Ethan deployed the drones. Small machines flew toward the Imperial vessel, scanning for damage. The humans worked quietly, efficiently, and without panic. Reactor core looks unstable, Ethan said. We need to stabilize the energy flow. Our drones can handle it, but we must act carefully. Lisa monitored the energy readings. I see minor fluctuations. We need precise adjustments. Their system isn't designed for errors, but our drones can do it. Lucas spoke calmly into the comms. Imperial ship, we are assisting you. No harm intended. Hold steady. The Imperial ship remained silent. Officers on board watched the humans' drones with tense eyes. They had never seen such small, precise machines work so quickly on complex systems. Minutes passed. The drones repaired damaged circuits, balanced energy flow, and stabilized the reactor. The patrol ship's lights returned to normal. Engines hummed steadily again. Inside the human ship, Ethan exhaled. Done. They're stable. No harm, no failure. Lisa smiled. And we did it quietly. No panicking, no rushing. Humans always do it this way. The Imperial fleet was stunned. Whispers spread quickly. They fixed the ship. A single human ship fixed our patrol vessel in minutes, Zalith observed from his flagship. They are more capable than they appear. Small, unarmed, and yet effective. How can they do so much with so little? Lucas turned to his crew. Let's leave before they start asking questions. Humans help when needed, not to stay involved. Claire agreed. We've made our point. Quietly, efficiently, that's enough. As the human ship pulled away, the Imperial officers continued to stare in disbelief. They had expected fear, weakness, and ignorance. Instead, they saw calm, intelligence, and skill. Humans did not boast. They did not threaten. They simply acted and solved the problem. Back on the human ship, Lisa looked at the data. Their systems are impressive, but simple, careful action works better in emergencies. Their empire relies on complexity and scale. Humans rely on thought and preparation. Ethan nodded. And a small team can outperform a massive fleet if they know what they're doing. That's humans. Lucas smiled. Exactly. We don't need hundreds of ships to solve a problem. We just need focus, calm, and effort, Claire added, and we don't need to show off. The Empire noticed anyway. Quiet action speaks louder than words. Meanwhile, the Empire was in debate. Officers, scholars, and generals met in various rooms aboard the flagship. They argued, whispered, and speculated. They are small, primitive, one general said. But they do not act like other races. They solve problems with calm precision. That is unusual. Maybe they are stronger than we thought, a scholar replied. Perhaps their nature allows them to do things we cannot imagine. Zalith remained silent, watching the human ships retreat. They are unafraid, polite, and capable. That combination is dangerous. Back on the human ship, Ethan chuckled. They're talking about us already. We just fixed a problem, quietly. No boasting. Lisa laughed softly. Humans rarely boast. We do the work and let others notice it. This is what confuses the Empire, Claire nodded. We showed them our skill without threatening them. That's the human way. We survive because we act, not because we demand attention. Lucas turned to the stars. We didn't plan to impress anyone. We didn't plan to challenge the Empire, but humans survive this way, calmly, quietly, efficiently. That's all we need. The Empire continued to monitor them. Fleets scanned, ships moved closer, and officers discussed every move the humans made. But the humans remained focused on their own work, checking systems, preparing for the next jump, and quietly observing the Empire around them. Over time, rumors began to spread among the Empire. Small human ships could fix problems instantly. Humans did not fear power. Humans were polite but confident. Humans were capable in ways the Empire had never seen. Zalith called a meeting with his top commanders. They are small, he said, primitive, yet they act without fear. They solve problems without boasting. They are unpredictable. We cannot treat them like other races. Should we attack? One general asked. Zalith shook his head. No, they do not seek war. They act only when necessary. Attacking them could provoke unexpected results. We observe, we learn, we wait. Humans are patient and clever. That is what makes them dangerous. Back on the human ship, Lisa glanced at the stars. The Empire thinks they are powerful. They are. But we do not need to fear them. We just need to be ourselves. Ethan nodded. And ourselves is enough. Humans survive because we stay calm, think carefully, and act precisely. Lucas smiled faintly. Exactly. We didn't come here to challenge them. We didn't come here to impress them. We came by accident, but our nature, it speaks for itself. Claire added, and they notice. Without us even trying. That is what makes humans humans. The human ship continued its journey near the Imperial fleet, quietly showing skill, calm, and intelligence. The Empire watched, confused, and slowly began to understand that size, power, and fear were not the only measures of strength. And humans, by simply being themselves, had already begun to teach a lesson the Empire had never learned. After the quiet display of human skill, the Galactic Empire entered a state of confusion. High Commander Zalith sat in the command chamber, staring at the projection of the human ship. His officers and scholars had gathered to discuss what they had seen. They are small, one general said, primitive in technology, yet their actions, they are precise, calm, and effective. How can such a minor race achieve this? Zalith frowned. We assumed that size, firepower, and intimidation were enough. We were wrong. They do not fear us, yet they do not attack. They are confident, polite, and capable. We must reconsider everything. A scholar spoke carefully. Their efficiency is remarkable. They fixed a failing ship using minimal resources, no weapons, no threats. If they can do this casually, what could they do if they chose to act decisively? We cannot assume anything, Zalith said, his voice low. Humans are unpredictable. That is dangerous for an empire that relies on obedience and fear. Meanwhile, the human ship drifted in orbit near the Empire's fleet, checking its own systems after the repairs. Captain Lucas Parker leaned back in his chair. Well, he said, we've shown them humans can act without fear. Now we just keep calm and observe. Ethan nodded. I think they're still watching. They didn't know how to react last time, and now we fixed their ship. That will make them even more tense. Lisa smiled. Humans don't try to scare anyone. We just do what needs to be done. That's why it's so surprising to others. Claire added, and humans don't fight unless necessary. We cooperate if it helps, but we never bow. That combination is confusing to most. Inside the Empire, discussions were growing heated. Generals wanted to show strength, Scholars wanted to study and officers demanded action. "They are too dangerous to leave unchecked," a general said. "We should detain them, study them, or destroy them." "Destroying them could provoke unintended consequences," a scholar countered. "Their calm and intelligence may allow them to survive and outsmart us. We do not understand them fully." Zalith leaned forward. "We observe, we reassess. Attacking humans without understanding them is reckless. They are small, but their nature gives them an advantage we cannot ignore." Back on the human ship, Ethan examined the fleet movements. "They're rearranging ships again, maybe trying to intimidate us." Lucas shook his head. "Let them try. Humans are not afraid of big fleets. We respect skill, not size. They will learn soon enough." Lisa added, "I still find their technology fascinating. Huge ships, advanced engines, energy shields, yet they rely on complexity. Humans often use simplicity and redundancy. It works better under stress." Claire looked thoughtful. "And humans remain calm. Fear clouds judgment. Humans rarely panic. That is why we survive situations that would terrify others." As the day passed, the Empire sent another delegation to meet the humans. This time, the delegation was larger, more carefully prepared. They expected to assert dominance, but the humans were still calm, polite, and confident. One officer spoke sharply. "Humans, we have studied your actions. You are unusual, you do not obey, you are not afraid, you repair our ship. You act without concern for danger. Explain yourselves." Lucas smiled slightly. "We are humans. We survive by staying calm, thinking carefully, and acting with care. We do not need to fear others to do what is right. We respect skill and knowledge, not authority alone." "You underestimate us," the officer said. "We are the Galactic Empire. Your actions are meaningless before our power." Ethan shrugged. "We do not underestimate you. We just do not fear you. Humans survive differently. We think, we act, we observe. That is enough." Lisa stepped forward. "And humans solve problems quietly without need for power displays. That is why we can act effectively where others might panic or fail." The officers whispered to each other. They had never encountered a race that acted like this. Humans were calm, capable, polite, and unafraid. It was confusing and unsettling. Zalith observed silently. "They do not seek conflict. They do not show fear. They act efficiently, even when we expect submission. Humans are unpredictable. That is their strength." Claire added calmly, "Humans cooperate when it is sensible. We respond to understanding and reason, not intimidation. That is why we survived accidents and challenges." Back on the human ship, Lucas and his crew prepared for a brief observation mission near the Empire. They checked equipment, repaired minor systems, and discussed strategy. "We need to understand them," Lucas said. "Humans survive by observing carefully. We need to know their patterns, their behavior, and their technology, not to attack but to protect ourselves." Ethan smiled. "We're humans, we do that naturally. Stay calm, learn, adapt." Lisa nodded. "And quietly, efficiently. Humans never rush unnecessarily. That is how we survive in hostile space." Claire added, "And humans are polite. We do not provoke unless needed. That combination confuses most races, especially empires that rely on fear." Meanwhile, in the Empire, the scholars continued to debate. "They are small," one said. "Primitive, yet they repaired our ship with ease. Their logic is remarkable. Their calm is unnatural. How can such a minor race be so capable?" Another scholar replied, "Their intelligence and patience compensate for their size. They do not act recklessly. They observe. They calculate, they survive. That is why they are dangerous." Zalith remained quiet, watching the humans' movements carefully. He realized that the Empire's assumptions were wrong. Humans did not respond to intimidation. They did not tremble. They did not beg. Humans acted with thought, skill, and calm. "We cannot treat them like other races," Zalith finally said. "We cannot assume our size or firepower will control them. Humans are different. We must learn from them, observe them, and reassess our strategies. Back on the human ship, Lucas gathered his crew. We have made an impression without confrontation. We have shown humans survive calmly, efficiently, and politely. The Empire is confused. That is enough for now. Ethan nodded. And we didn't need to show weapons or firepower. Just action and skill, Lisa smiled. Humans rarely need to boast. Others notice anyway, Claire added, and humans respect knowledge and ability, not threats. That is why we survive. The human ship quietly drifted near the Empire's fleet, observing and learning. The Empire, meanwhile, slowly realized that humans were not a minor race to dismiss. Zalith convened another meeting. Humans are patient, capable, calm, and polite. They survive in ways we do not understand. We must adjust our assumptions. They are dangerous, but not because they seek war. They are dangerous because of who they are. The Empire began to reconsider its approach. Generals debated, scholars studied, and officers watched the humans' every move. The calm, quiet efficiency of humans had shaken their assumptions about power. Back on the human ship, Lucas looked out at the stars. We did not seek this. We only survived, acted carefully, and helped when needed. Yet the Empire is reassessing itself because of us. Ethan chuckled. Humans are always underestimated, yet we survive. That's what makes us humans, Lisa smiled. And quietly, without trying, we change how others think. Claire nodded. Humans respect skill, knowledge, and understanding. We do not obey blindly. We do not fear needlessly. That is why we last where others fail. The Empire's officers continued to debate. They realized that raw power, numbers, and intimidation were not always enough. Humans were small, polite, and unarmed in appearance, yet their calm, intelligence, and skill challenged the very foundations of the Empire's assumptions. Zalith spoke quietly to his council. Humans are not the first race to visit us. They may be small, but their nature, calm, capable, confident, changes how we must think about strength. We cannot underestimate them. And as the human ship quietly prepared for its next jump, the Empire slowly understood that humans had arrived by accident but left a lasting impression simply by being themselves. The human ship floated quietly in space, its systems checked, engines ready, and crew calm. Captain Lucas Parker looked out at the massive Imperial fleet that still surrounded them in orbit. The humans had accomplished something remarkable without even intending to. They had left the Empire unsettled, questioning, and uncertain. "Ready to leave?" Ethan asked, leaning back in his seat. Lucas nodded. "Ready. We don't want to stay longer than necessary. Humans survive best by acting with purpose, not by lingering where attention is unwanted." Lisa tapped her fingers on the console. "They've been observing us for days. Their fleet, their officers, even the scholars. We've made an impression without firing a weapon or raising our voices." Claire smiled. "That's how humans work. We act quietly and efficiently and let our nature speak for itself. Sometimes that's enough to teach a lesson." The ship powered its jump engines, preparing for the next leg of the journey. As the countdown proceeded, Lucas glanced at his crew. "We did what humans always do, stayed calm, solved problems, respected knowledge, and never feared power we didn't need to fight. Now we leave." Ethan grinned. "And we fixed one of their ships without being asked. That probably confused them the most." "Probably," Lisa said. "They expected fear, obedience, maybe surrender. Instead, we acted politely and efficiently. That's not something they are used to seeing." Outside, the Empire's fleet watched the humans prepare to depart. Officers whispered, generals debated, and scholars wrote notes at high speed. They could not understand the calm confidence of the humans. The Empire had assumed size and firepower were enough to demand obedience. Now they realized they had misjudged something far more important. High Commander Zalith stood silently on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the human ship. He had expected fear, humility, or submission. He had seen none of it. The humans had behaved politely, helped when they could, and acted confidently without intimidation. "Why are they not afraid?" one officer asked nervously. Zalith shook his head. "Humans are different, small, unarmed, yet they act with skill, intelligence, and calm. That combination unsettles even the strongest fleet. They are dangerous not because they attack, but because they survive where others fail." On the human ship, Lisa prepared a small data package to leave behind as a gesture of goodwill. "I'm sending them some scientific research," she said. "Nothing sensitive, just basic data. Maybe it will help them understand humans better." Lucas nodded. "Do it. Humans often share knowledge quietly to make progress. We don't need recognition. We just want understanding." The data package transmitted to the Empire. Within hours, the Imperial scholars began to study it, realizing that even basic human science could advance their research decades ahead. The Empire began to grasp that humans were capable in ways far beyond appearances. Ethan leaned back, stretching. "We didn't plan to impress them. We just acted like humans. Calm, careful, polite, skilled, and they noticed." Claire smiled. "Humans survive because we do not fear unnecessarily. We respect knowledge, not threats. We act when needed, quietly, efficiently. That is what they will remember." Lucas activated the jump sequence. The stars outside stretched into light as the ship prepared to leave the Empire's orbit. The crew braced themselves, but there was no fear, only quiet anticipation. As the jump completed, the human ship emerged in a distant star system far from the Empire. Lucas exhaled. "We're free. Humans survive, observe, and leave when the time is right." Lisa smiled. "And we left them thinking, that's what matters. Humans don't need to conquer. We just exist, calmly and skillfully, and the galaxy takes notice." Claire added, "The Empire will remember us. Not because we fought, not because we showed weapons, but because we acted like humans. Polite, capable, confident humans." Back in the Empire, High Commander Zalith reviewed reports from his officers. Fleets had scanned the humans, scholars had studied their actions, generals had debated tactics, and every observation had a single conclusion. Humans were different, unpredictable, and quietly strong. "Small, polite, and capable," Zalith muttered. "That is the nature of humans. They survive because they think, act calmly, and respect knowledge. We underestimated them. That was our mistake." Imperial officers began to record the humans' behaviors as a case study. No other race had behaved this way. Most had shown fear, arrogance, or desperation. Humans had shown none of these, yet they had acted efficiently, skillfully, and politely. It was a puzzle that scholars, commanders, and generals would study for years. Meanwhile, on the human ship, Lucas and his crew prepared for the next exploration. Systems were checked, charts updated, and routines resumed. The humans had survived contact with a vast empire without conflict, without fear, and without compromise. Ethan shook his head. "I still can't believe how calm we were. If this had been any other race, we'd have panicked." Lisa laughed softly. "Humans are calm. It's what we do. Panic doesn't help survival. Calculation, observation, and careful action does." Claire added, "And humans act politely even under pressure. That's why the Empire was so confused. We did not fight. We did not beg. We acted efficiently and left when needed." Lucas smiled faintly. "That is the human way. We survive not by intimidation, not by fear, not by size. We survive because we think, observe, act, and respect knowledge. And that is enough." As the human ship drifted into deeper space, the Empire watched silently. Officers, scholars, and generals whispered in meeting rooms, fleets repositioned, and the galaxy slowly began to reconsider the meaning of power. Humans had arrived by accident, yet their calm, polite, and capable nature had already started to change the Empire's understanding of strength. Zalith spoke quietly to his council. "We assumed strength comes from size, power, and fear. Humans teach us otherwise. Strength can come from calm, skill, and understanding. We must remember that. Back on the human ship, Ethan tapped the controls. I like that. Humans teach lessons without meaning to. It's in our nature. Lisa nodded. And the galaxy notices. Quietly, efficiently, and without boasting, Claire smiled. Humans survive, act carefully, and leave impressions. That is what makes us human. Lucas leaned back in his chair, eyes on the stars. We leave now, but they will remember. Not because we conquered or threatened, but because we existed as humans. Calm, capable, polite, confident, and unafraid. That is enough to change the way the galaxy thinks. As the ship powered its engines for the next journey, the stars stretched into lines of light. The humans continued their quiet exploration of space, leaving behind a galaxy that would never forget them. Not for their firepower, not for their numbers, but for the simple, remarkable nature of being human. The Empire, watching from afar, had learned a lesson it would not forget. Humans may be small, accidental, and seemingly simple, but underestimated humans are a force no empire could ignore. And with that, the human ship disappeared among the stars, carrying its crew forward, ready for new discoveries, confident in their nature, and leaving the galaxy wiser simply because humans had been there.